merits, I'd like to make a comment about that. Somewhat rude interruption, so I can give you a context of them.
I'm sorry to impose on this event, and Mr. Marchionne, you spoke about accountability. My mother was killed by a defective Chrysler product. What? If it was your mother, you would be up here too. What does Chrysler plan on doing to the victims that they left?
Sit down. They're out of here.
My mother died because of a defective Chrysler product. If it was your mother, you would be up here too.
You seem to attract a great deal of coverage.
I do. If I can just address a question that is of competence, and that is, I think, the outburst that we saw.
It was a serious talk, and we appreciate it.
I'm sorry?
It was a serious talk, and we appreciate it.
The talk was serious.
A few questions.
The gentleman that went around the room before that I think has been escorted out and was complaining about, used the term vergonia, which is shame in English. There's been, and there continues to be, a large degree of consternation in Italy about the fact that we have decided to shut down a plant in Sicily. This was announced on June 18th of last year. It was confirmed in subsequent meetings that I've had with both the unions and the government. We made our case very clear as to the reason that supported the decision, and the decision is irreversible. I talked about the fact that this industry is going to run at roughly two-thirds utilization of its current installed capacity. The Sicilian plant is structurally unable to compete, and we actually lose money on every car we manufacture. We've explained this to the parties at the table. We've made it very clear. I just want to make sure that you understand that Fiat, as an organization, is going to transition this plant at the end of 2011 into a new future. The responsibility ultimately to deal with its citizens is the responsibility of the government and not of Fiat. We are the largest industrial organization in Italy, but we do not have the responsibility to govern the country. And as such, we will do what's required. The first real product is coming out as a new Grand Cherokee, which will be available in Q2. We have less than 6 billion and more than I told you on November the 4th. This has to do with the hibernation story. We're very, very prudent. I think the term that I used at November the 4th was parsimonious. People thought that it's an illness. It's not. We're just cheap.
When will we see the first Italian?
December 2010.
When will we see the Fiat 500?
December 2010.
Then we won't ask what it is. Dodge is a great brand. Dodge Ram was a great branded truck. Why'd you drop Dodge from your truck name?
For two reasons. I think the Ram now as a brand is sufficiently strong to stand on its own. So I'm not worried about the fact that it needed the emotional support of Dodge to sort of stand up. I mean, it's a full liner pickup. It is a full liner of pickup offerings, and it's intended to be the basis on which we build a commercial vehicle business through the Chrysler organization. So, as you well know, Fiat is the largest producer of commercial vehicles in Europe, and intends to bring these over into the United States and use the Ram brand to penetrate the market. That's the first reason. And secondly, because one of the things that we talked about, this whole notion of brand equity and what brands stand for, it is very, very difficult, to be honest, to try and reconcile what I consider to be the key elements of the chromosomes of a Ram pickup driver with what I consider to be a more general passenger brand like Dodge. And we've had long discussions with both Ralph Giles and Fred Diaz, who's here, who runs the Ram brand, as to whether effectively we should keep this umbilical cord between Dodge and Ram. And I think we came away with the conclusion that it doesn't need to. I mean, Ram is big enough and strong enough to do this on its own, and it should.
But in a period where people seem to be contracting their brands dramatically.
But they're contracting the brands because they have significant overlaps in the product portfolio across the passenger car side. which is one of the nightmares that we all face running multiple brands. The last thing you want walking into a Chrysler Jeep Dodge dealer, and now Ram, is to walk into a C-segment car which just got 2 badges on it. Right? That's the best way to try and confuse a customer. So the debate, and I think the very thorough analysis that has gone on inside Chrysler, and which is the reason why we were very quiet until November the 4th, is to identify exactly the type of vehicle in each one of these segments that the brands need to present to the marketplace without creating the inherent conflict within the dealership to try and choose one over the other. So we're not creating cannibalization of particular models within ourselves. I think Chrysler, and I think in a lot of, to a large extent, Fiat has in Europe, has created its own problem by so doing, and I think we need to stop doing it. Right?
How do you justify the huge cost that Ferrari spends on Formula One racing?
Two reasons. The first one is that Ferrari doesn't do any advertising at all, 0. And it does effectively no marketing except through the Formula One venue. And the essence, I mean, Ferrari is a racing brand. It's been historically known to do this. It needs to prove its DNA every time it gets into the track. It's had rough patches, I mean, let's be clear. But it has, I mean, it's also had a phenomenal, successful history of wins on Formula One. And I think it needs to continue to do this. I think we're looking forward to the 2010 season with Alonso in. I think, you know, Alonso and hopefully the recovered Felipe will make a great team. We started working on the car last year early enough after we knew that somehow we had missed or misunderstood the directives of FIA on what was allowed and what was not allowed. So I feel relatively comfortable that we're going to have a great 2010, and I think it's a source of pride, not just for Ferrari. I think it's a source of pride for the whole Fiat group to be associated.
Are you just as comfortable with having Mr. Schumacher hanging out at a Mercedes plate?
I could make a really rude remark, but I'll pass.
So how many black sweaters do you have?
I mean,
How many black sweaters do you have?
I buy them in dozens. And since I don't sleep much, and I buy all these on the internet, in case you're wondering.
This is
I
the
can't buy a
longest-
car yet, but I buy them on the internet. So they come in a dozen at a time. They're on a regular order.
This is the longest I've seen you without a cigarette. You haven't quit.
I'm learning. What?
You haven't quit.
No, no, I'm fine. It's just you kept me up here all this time, otherwise I would have been out having one.
One final question. Is it okay for Chrysler employees in Auburn Hills to wear open shirts and sweaters?
Yeah.
They don't need to wear suits.
If they show up looking like me, there's other colors other than black. I think, yellow's fine, but emulation, exact emulation may not be sort of advisable. I may take it for an imposter or shoot him or something.
When you're in Detroit, what kind of Chrysler do you drive?
When I'm in
Detroit.
I drive, my favorite car is the Nitro. I've driven it, obviously I have a 300, I mean, you must, right? But I like the Nitro. I think it's a cool car. And I'm not saying this to make Ralph feel so excited about this, but it's a real cool car.
Ralph's getting old.
He's 40.
And I should hasten to make the plug that Ralph will be speaking at the Auto We Designed Forum tomorrow.
He is.
Yeah,
On his birthday.
on his birthday.
Talking about
I'm not sure they'll have cake, but Sergio, thank you very much for coming. It's always good.